We say good morning to Alan Quinlan. Quinny, up tip.
Oh yeah, unbelievable, Ger. I couldn't believe it, to be honest, but very pleased. Obviously, I put a tweet out the other night, and I'm obviously in Australia, but the one person I was thinking about was Liam Cahill. Honestly, I just thought the grief he's gotten the last couple of years and the criticism, and just to end up winning in Ireland, surprisingly winning in All-Ireland was phenomenal. So it was lovely at the end when I saw him with his family and stuff like that. But I know Colm is not happy, not a happy camper, but and the rest of my Cork colleagues and friends. But that sport is crazy, you know. I said this, Ger, to a few people, and I quickly said, people ask me what were the chances. There's loads of Cork people on the trip here as well. And I referred to 2009 when Munster beat Leinster convincingly in the both league games, and then we went to Croke Park and they convincingly beat us. Sometimes sport doesn't make sense. On form, that didn't really make sense at the time. It just shows you what you can do in the day, and to beat a team 3 times in the year. You know, Cork beat Tip well in the championship and in the league, and they were everyone's favourites. We were the favourites against Leinster that time. So I was kind of comparing it to that. And that's when I kind of thought, geez, you know what? It'll take a good performance for Cork to win here. I expected them to win, and sport is crazy. It's a real leveller, isn't it?
Hi, Quinny. Congratulations. Well done and all that. Hope you're having a great time.
He doesn't mean a word of it.
I do, yeah. I'm happy for you. I was wondering, I don't even know why I'm asking this question, to be honest, but were you ever like part of a half like that in Cork in the second half against Tip where everything goes so spectacularly wrong? Like that 2009 is a really good example of what happened between Munster and Leinster, but you yourself, were you ever involved in a game like that where, you know, you score basically the equivalent of 3 points in rugby and you were winning at half time and you totally capitulated and you can't understand why?
I can't think of one. But I think of that 2009 game where everything went wrong from the word go for us, really, you know what I mean? And it didn't make sense. You know, it was always going to be, it should have been a tight game. But, you know, the scoreline was, you know, Leinster were pretty comfortable. We had a lot of possession that game, and we didn't click. And, you know, that's the intrigue of sports psychology. And, you know, you often people hear, oh, the other team wanted it more and all that stuff. And people, it doesn't necessarily mean that some player wanted to win it more than the other. It's just that it's a reference to desire, emotion, intensity, all that kind of stuff. And you know, emotion is a big part of sport. That's really, really important, I think. And I'm always intrigued by, if you remember, Colm, the back-to-back games in Europe in the old Heineken Cup.
Yeah.
Like 1 week you get a result where you go out and you're ultra dominant, you win comfortably, and the following week then you go to France and it's like you're playing different players, you're playing a different team. There's been no changes really in either side, but it just completely flips over, you know. And so yeah, I just think of the 09 one that was the game that just things went wrong for us, and it went wrong for Cork at the weekend, and it doesn't necessarily make them a bad team. You know, it's very unfair to kind of suggest that they're not good enough. You know, if they play Tip this week in a game, as if it's a second test or something like that, you know, they probably are good enough to win it and probably do win it. So it's just the intrigue of sport, really, and it's crazy. So, you know, that's what I referenced last week to a good few people who asked me, will Tip win? Well, I said, I give Tip a good chance on the basis that to beat any team 3 times in a season is from my own game, you know, from rugby. It's very hard to do that. And Tip obviously had improved a lot. So that's the intrigue of sport, really.
Should we talk about the narrow victory over the First Nations and Pacifica 15 yesterday, Quinny, in relation to the second test, or is it irrelevant?
No, I think it's a little bit of a momentum booster as well. Actually, all the Australians are walking past here behind me. I'm in the kind of a first floor of the hotel they're staying in, and they actually decided to stay with us this time. We didn't decide to stay with them, you know. So every corner I turned there's an Australian. Joe was floating around there, Laurie Fisher again, and I'm limiting my questions and my potholing to the boys. But yeah, I think the game last night was, look, it's kind of irrelevant, really. You see what Andy Farrell did by bringing in, you know, Thomas Clarkson, the 3 Scottish players that last week, and then Gregor Brown, the other Scottish player this week. It was all about protecting the vast majority of his 23 for the second test at the weekend. Is there players who played last night in contention? Well, when Jack Morgan has been taken off after 53 or 4 minutes, I went, wow, yeah. Because if I'm Jack Morgan and I'm not involved in the second test, I'm frustrated. I'm saying, why are you taking me off? I want to play. I mightn't play again in the tour. Who knows what's going to happen in the third test? Like, obviously, if the Lions win the second test, I think, you know, the guys will get opportunities. The marginal calls will all get opportunities next week in the third test. But, you know, I don't think Andy Farrell or the coaches are thinking about that at the moment. It suggests and that Joe McCarthy could be under a bit of pressure with his injury. Again, it's only speculation, but the rumour mill around here is that he's not going to make it. And I think, I could be wrong, of course, but I think maybe that Chesson will start in the second row and Jack Morgan could be put onto the bench. Right. Who knows? Could be totally wrong. Joe McCarthy could be fit to go. Disappointing for James Ryan coming off last night as well, because I thought that if something happened to Joe McCarthy, he'd be maybe he will be in the running now. Maybe he will go onto the bench. That's the other thing that could happen, because you know, Andy Farrell is not going to leave on somebody for 80 minutes on Tuesday night and then be involved in the test at the weekend. So there's certainly a couple of players who could be in the mix. Jack Morgan, James Ryan. I think Josh van der Fleer was outstanding last night, but again, he plays the whole game. Kinghorn, Gary Ringrose, they're certainly players who could be involved. I think Owen Farrell put his hand up last night to say, well, all these question marks about my match fitness and my ability and my quality is, were put to bed, because I thought he was very, very good. He was really composed, strong, physical, looked sharp. And that was a real test for him, because the Pacifica team were very, very physical, asking a lot of questions. So, you know, when you talk about the benefit of that game last night, look, I know you want to win the game, and when they kick the ball out at the end and they win by 5 points, it's great. It's another victory for them. But I think he'll be really pleased with that. It was a tough game, that they didn't run away with this, and there's some of the players actually that maybe in the 23 at the weekend are got a hard test, and they showed their quality, and they showed that they have that hunger and desire to be involved at the weekend.
Does Owen Farrell have to be involved in the second test for you?
Doesn't have to be, but I think Marcus Smith went off with a HIA.
Yeah.
Obviously, Finn Smith is a very good player and was originally picked. And, you know, you think we all thought that, yes, he's going to be the one that's going to be on the bench for the test matches. But I think the versatility, obviously, of Marcus Smith last weekend, and that kind of gave him a little bit of a nudge ahead as regards his selection. But, you know, if Marcus Smith picks up a HIA, it depends, or, you know, he picks up a head knock, and it depends how bad it was, and did he fail a HIA or what happened?
The English papers,
we don't know.
The English papers this morning are reporting that he passed it. So, and they're skewing heavily that McCarthy's out and that Hansen's out. And so, look, the speculation, I suppose, is whether or not Ringrose comes onto the bench. If Ringrose comes onto the bench, you don't need Marcus Smith on the bench, because you could have Ringrose.
Yeah, he can cover wing, but you know, you need a second 10 really, Ger. Somebody who can play.
Well, that's Farrell
in that position. Yeah, so I think that's where Farrell covers. You know, he covers centres and 10 as well. So yeah, I just have a sneaky feeling that Owen Farrell will be involved. I think he looked sharp last night. Again, all speculation and opinion. It's an opinion. We're not going to see. The only change we're going to see is possibly on the bench. Yeah. I think the team that started last week, there is a chance, obviously, and I think he was probably ahead of Hugo Keenan 2 weeks ago, was Blair Kinghorn. Whether he comes back. He had a poor first half, made a couple of mistakes, gave an intercept pass. Second half, he was outstanding, so he showed that, and he hasn't, wasn't involved for the last couple of matches. So
James Tracy reckoned you could put him on the wing ahead of Tommy Freeman, and then that does also free up getting Farrell onto the bench because he covers fullback if Keenan gets injured.
I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think they're going to drop Tommy Freeman. I think he's too good a player, and I don't think they'll kind of make multiple changes like that. I think if you, it could come against Bundyaki if Gary Ringrose is fit and they put on Farrell. I think it's obviously their centres covered then. They have, if Owen Farrell goes on, they've out half centre covered. If Gary Ringrose come off, they've wing, centre, wing, and possibly full back three player covered. Freeman can go full back, Gary Ringrose go on the wing. There's multiple things you can do there. It could come against Bundyaki. So who knows? He might put Bundyaki and Gary Ringrose straight into the centres this week. I doubt it, but there's multiple options there, and we could be here all morning speculating about it. But I do sense that, I think Farrell maybe can go onto the bench. It'll be a tough one on Finn Smith because I think he would have, again, as we said at the very start of this tour, we thought that Finn Smith would be the one that would be number 2 to Finn Russell and sitting on the bench.
Australia are as big underdogs as Tip were, slightly bigger heading into the game this weekend.
Yeah.
What's with the grunts?
There's no need to bring that comparison up. Go on, sorry.
Colm, we're going to bring it up forever more, so you just better get used to it. Until Cork come back and beat Tip in an All-Ireland final.
Even then, it's only 1-1.
Well, that's if Tip finally retained it. That's if Tip finally retained it. I'm happy for you. I'm happy for you.
Whatever.
Sorry, continue with your journalism.
No, we're humble. We have to be careful now, and I would tell the Tip crowd, be careful now because, we beat Leinster in 06 in the semi-final, and in 09 we were kind of licking our wounds. So the old wheel turns all the time. So keep the heads down. They've got to keep the heads down, really, and enjoy their victory. But plenty of banter between the fans for sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, your point about emotion is the one that I was trying to lean in on there. Like, Joe Schmidt has had his team be humiliated in that first half. Could have been 40 points at Brian O'Driscoll last night. There will be a slightly different pack from their perspective, like big beasts, ball carriers, nous, experience being added. There'll be a different halfback pairing as well. So, it's not going to be the same Australian team. We're clutching at straws, but to try and make a competitive test series, you're going to need as big a turnaround, as big a surprise as we saw last weekend from Tip against Cork. It has happened.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think they just need to start the game better. It sounds very simple. I think that'll be their focus this week, trying to win those collisions. And obviously, if again we think and we're hearing here, and I see them going in and out of the hotel, I think Will Skelton and Valentini, it looks like they're probably going to start. I saw Nick White a lot in the last day or two. I just have a sneaky feeling he's going to be wearing the number 9 jersey at the weekend. I know Tate McDermott, who just walked past me, so I just have to be careful that they don't hear me saying this. I think he obviously came off the bench and he was brilliant, and he brought a real zip and energy to their performance. Again, I don't know, but I think obviously with if Skelton and Valentini start, it gives them a little bit of physical power and presence that they lost a lot of gain line, they lost a lot of collisions early on in that game, and they struggled to get the ball back off the lines. The lines were very good. They were really, really intense in what they were doing. So I think the key for Australia this week is to start well and hope that, because I don't think Will Skelton and Valentini will they last 80 minutes. It's unlikely. They've been out for a number of weeks with injuries. But it would be refreshing and a great place for them to be in if they can start better and get a better performance and stay close to the Lions, because I think they definitely have an ability, and they showed that in the last 20 minutes when the game loosens up a little bit to cause problems and score tries. So very undercooked team. One game against Fiji.
That's mad. That's mad, Quinny, isn't it?
I still can't get my head around it. You're playing a Lions series, and for a couple of years. For 12 years, don't you?
Yeah.
But the preparation here about just playing the one game against Fiji, I think they will be better. They have to be. Sure they will have looked at the videos and really scrutinised that game, and that'll be intriguing to see what Joe and his team come up with. But just the brass tacks of bringing a bit of anger and aggression, and they were bullied in the first half. Nothing illegal, but the Lions are just very, very dominant, really hungry, aggressive off the line, very, very physical at the breakdown. And I think that's where they just got to, hopefully, from their point of view, find that intensity and match it. And I think the changes will obviously benefit them as well, and playing that extra game under their belt.
This probably goes against every fibre of your being, but is it a good thing if Australia win this weekend for the legitimacy 100%. Of the series?
100%, yeah.
Do you want them to win this weekend?
Well, let's be careful now. I get in trouble with Andy Farrell and the rest of the Lions crew, because I saw some of them around today as well. Yes, I do want them to win. I think if Australia win this weekend, it makes for a great week. From a fan's point of view, from an occasion point of view, from a series point of view, I think if the Lions win this weekend, which where we're sitting now, we expect them to win. It just kind of makes it very flat for next week for Sydney. And just for the sport, really, it would be brilliant if Australia did win this game. They've got to find something crazy, though, really, because the form would suggest that they're not going to be good enough to do it. And I think the Lions will get better themselves, when you think about it. But they've so many games played, haven't they? And they've that kind of intensity and that ferocity built up in the last number of weeks. And they'll want to be better, particularly in that second half as well. So, it should be a cracker. I think Australia will be a lot better, and that's something that we all want to see. We'd love to see a really cliffhanger of a game where it's on edge right up to the last minute. I think on 52 or 3 minutes last week, game is over, isn't it? When Dan Sheehan scores a try, you think that's it. They responded well, showed a lot of character, but that's hopefully we'll see that intensity.
What do the Lions do to not be complacent heading into this? We keep hearing about, you were talking about hunger not being, they want to win it more, right? Because obviously the Lions players are desperate to seal this. It would, from their perspective, the last week would be the most enjoyable week of all time. Like the last 15 minutes was for the Tiff fans against Cork. Just absolutely able to celebrate and revel in it. You know exactly what's going to happen. That was egregious. I didn't need to do that one, but it was good. From the Lions' perspective, how do you not be a little bit like? Does Andy Farrell actually make changes on the basis of that?
Well, yeah, he could. You see, he could freshen things up, and we always over the years heard a lot about and were intrigued by Brian Cody making 2-3 changes to his team and keeping them on edge, keeping team announcements right to the last minute, all that kind of stuff when he was very successful with Kilkenny. So again, it's the management of the team, and Andy Farrell or the rest of his Lions players won't be showing any sentiment or sympathy for Australia. They'll want to get the job done this week. So you do speak about it, Ger. I think you've got to speak and say, look, they're going to come flying out of the blocks. Their heads are on the line. They're going to be better. How can we be better? So it's all to do with your preparation all week. And you hope that people click into gear and get it. You don't need to frighten people. And I don't think Andy's that kind of a coach. And we've heard lots from ex-players how calm he is and So I think he'll motivate the players, and that's where good management comes into play, where you talk about this stuff. Gary Keegan is there, the sports psychology that we're mentioning. He'll be probably talking to guys during the week, individuals trying to talk about the scenarios and the narratives that can occur and can be created here. So, I think they talk about it, but you don't want to over focus on it. I think they have to talk about what they have to do themselves and how they get themselves right. So you've got to be aware that all the stuff that I said there, it's very obvious. Anybody will think, yes, Australia are going to come with ferocity and emotion, and but we've got to focus on our strengths. So I think looking back on the first half, what the Lions did really well, how can they expand that and prolong that over a period of time? So yeah, that's the challenge for them, that they don't kind of go, well, yeah, we were comfortable last week really, and we just have to do a few small things and it'll be the same again. If they show a ruthless edge, and I think that there's 4 countries coming together here. There's top class internationals, big leaders right across this team, big characters as well, who will want to get the job done here. And for their point of view, then they can series 1 at the weekend, and they can, he can freshen things up going into the 3rd test. But it's a very, very relevant point that if you're a Lions player or a Lions coach, or you're involved with that team, that you don't get any bit complacent, and that you make sure that those reminders are everywhere all week in your preparation, your training.
I'm looking forward to digging deep into the game and the aftermath with you, but I have one more question about the overall significance of this tour. You know, the way that previous Lions tours can be the making of certain players, that they perform so well. But is that eradicated if it is an easy series victory?
No, I don't think so. I think obviously it's not the same. If you're, you talk about characters in sport and people coming of age and all that kind of stuff. And that's very relevant and important. And we see that a lot in sport, individual sport, collective sport, players stepping up to the plate, having big moments. So far, the intensity of this tour has been not what you would want. And that's why, Australia, even if they lose, and, every Lions supporter here wants them to win as well, it just having more of a competitiveness to the game. It wasn't, and it's crazy with the scoreline, we're talking like that this was a 50 or 60 pointer. It wasn't. Like, they showed incredible character to come back. But yeah, for individuals here, they learn a lot. You mature, you grow from the experience of being a British and Irish Lion, I think, and that will be very relevant, particularly some of the young players. You look at someone like Henry Pollock, his performance last night. I was quiet for a while, but he came up for some real big moments when they were on the line, and to do that as a 20-year-old is phenomenal. It's frightening where he can get to. Of course, they can learn from build on these experiences when they go back and play with their clubs. If you deal with it in the right way, obviously, that you don't think that we mentioned the word complacency, that you don't become complacent, but you take the positives out of being a British and Irish Lion for those players. So, obviously, if you're in South Africa and New Zealand at the moment, it's a different test series, isn't it? They've had a very, very comfortable run, the Lions, even in the warm-up games. It's been practically one-way traffic all the way.
I was trying to find...
in South Africa, New Zealand, there's possibly different,
Yeah.
It would be much better if this was in South Africa at the moment, with them being world champions and stuff. The Ireland-New Zealand 3-test series, there was a similar level of turnaround, a similar level of odds for Ireland to beat that New Zealand team in the second test after they beat us well on the scoreboard in the first test. That's the only kind of similar occasion I can think of where somebody has flipped the script. So, but that was a really well settled Ireland team.
He wants to just say hello for a minute. You're live on our podcast. This you can't hear him, lads, but Nick has popped in. So I wasn't telling lies about the Australians passing by anyway.
Are you starting this weekend?
He wants to know you're starting, Nick, but he can't answer yet. But they're wishing you well anyway.
Thank you very much.
We're
all behind you.
Series. We want to level up the series. Cheers, Nick. So I wasn't telling lies that they're behind me anyway, but he says no, he's not starting, but he's probably lying anyway.
That's the old rope-a-dope. He'll get dropped if he tells us he is starting. So
yeah. Well, I saw him going for a little ramble with Joe this morning, so I said that's a one-on-one now. That's definitely one-on-one. Joe's one-on-ones with they weren't going out as buddies. Like I just assumed that they're going for this is the plan for the weekend now. The day off today for both teams on the Wednesday. But anyway, we'll see.
Does Joe do those one-on-ones when he's cutting you and saying, "Look, I like your hustle. That's why it's so hard to cut you, Flanders"?
Yeah. Well, he wasn't cutting him because he wasn't starting. Because one of the lads said that to me. I said, I think I have a feeling Nick White could start, and he was going for a walk, and maybe he was giving him bad news. The person said, but the bad news was sure he wasn't on the 23 at the weekend. So anyway, we'll see. Everything I said at the start, Ger, could easily be wrong. Joe McCarthy could be starting. Owen Farrell might not be under 23. Who knows what they're going to do with the Australian side as well. But anyway.
One of the things Matt Williams was critical of the Lions was that they haven't organised enough meeting of kids, and they're not in the media in Australia enough. It seems like they're relatively approachable. We had an email from somebody overnight saying that their kids actually met the Lions in a coffee shop, and they were like, great, and it has totally transformed his kids' view of rugby. They're like obviously going to be fans for life. Is there an element where the Lions has become too much about the winning and the losing and less about actually trying to grow the game in Australia? Or does this actually only matter in Australia? Because ultimately, if this was New Zealand, we wouldn't care about growing the game. Or if this was South Africa, we'd be like trying to stop the game growing, essentially.
So the Lions players, some kid met the Lions players and they were
delighted. Yeah, and if more of that was happening, it would be better.
Yeah, well, my own son met AJ met numerous Lions players this morning, and they were floating around freely in their hotel. I'm with Rugby Travel Ireland here, and so we have some people staying. But the group I'm with, one of their leaders is a friend of mine, so I went to the hotel with him just to get a cup of tea, and AJ came with me. They were there. They were walking around freely. They were lovely. They couldn't have been nicer. Andy was around. So I don't see any sort of, lock these players away, don't meet people. There was numerous players up walking in and out for coffees. It was their day off. There was loads of people in the public around. So they weren't hidden away. So again, I don't know a lot of, we heard some sort of a report, did we, about them not staying out to sign autographs someday at some training or something, some school or something like that. I don't know anything about that, but all I can say is what I saw this morning was a group of people who were openly moving around in public and very happy to stop. And I saw them stopping, chatting to numerous people, standing in for photos, signing stuff. And it's exactly what I would expect from Andy Farrell. I don't know what the bigger picture as regards the, when we're at training and getting back in the bus or what the plan is, but I doubt it very much because we've always seen that with Andy Farrell with Ireland. He's been very relaxed with people and very relaxed with the media, very open and honest, and he's that kind of an atmosphere. So I can only say what I saw this morning. I know that report was out there, and look, I don't know if they've addressed it, but the game here, and you talk to Australian people, and Matt knows it better than I, and he's back here at the moment, and it's crazy with the level of support for AFL, NRL, cricket, and rugby does fall down the pecking order a good bit, and there's a worry and concern when you meet rugby union people in Australia here as to the understanding, the challenges they have around that, because, we were up in Brisbane at the weekend, and it's just most people you meet their NRL supporters or the AFL supporters, and it's hard to find the kind of union supporters. Of course, they're there with the Queensland Reds. So, yeah, I think, look, we're talking about the bigger picture of the series here, but obviously what happens with this series, the impact it would have if the Lions were off, if Australia to win the second test here and level it up and bring that kind of excitement, it certainly would help to grow the game here.